Let's have a great show, everyone. Woo!
Woo!
It's Song Talk Radio with Michael, Neil, Phil, and the gang.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, episode 318. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs, ideally. I'm your host, Mike Proudfoot, and with me are the super isolated members of the Song Talk Radio action team. We have far away Phil Emery. Hello, Phil.
I am very far away and isolated, although I'm with Heather, so it's not so bad.
Oh, that's good. And we have the nearly far away Neil Modi. Hello, Neil.
The near far away? Yeah, thank you.
Oh, not as far as Phil. So nearly far.
Enjoying the self-isolation almost as much as my hair is.
Yes. If you're regular viewers, you'll notice that Neil's hair is reaching eye-scraping levels. And please feel free to comment on that and anything else during the show. Just send in your
Talk Radio
or your questions to @SongTalkRadio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca, and we'll share them with the audience. And please visit us at songtalk.ca to find out how you can be a guest on the show. And you're probably wondering who the other person is in the box. And that would be our guest tonight, singer-songwriter Jesse Perront. Jesse, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
All the way from Kitchener, Ontario, where he is currently. Jesse has years of extensive gigging under his belt. He's regularly played the circuit of venues in Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, and Stratford area, and has also played such notable Toronto venues as the Horseshoe Tavern and the Cameron House, toured out east on the East Coast, and played shows in Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City. Jesse has said that his material features his unique perspective on personal experiences, which every songwriter has their own individual experience. And so he has his own take on it and hopes that people connect with it. Jesse excels at writing narrative songs, like the storytelling in Wanted in Chicago on both About Time and his live album, Lonely Gunman, and his Lonely album, period. Also, Lonely Gunman, another evocative story song that premiered on the Live at the Schoolhouse Theatre, which was used in the soundtrack for a 2015 feature film, Man vs. Well, that's pretty cool. He has plans to release a studio album soon in 2020. I hope that's still on track. The isolation does play havoc with people, but it does give you time to write songs. So Jesse's focused on writing music and melodies that resonate with his fan base and new listeners alike, which some of our audience would be. And with that, if that wasn't enough, now he gets to join us here on Song Talk Radio.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here. Intros like that make me nervous. Shows like this make me nervous because I'm really great at pretending I know what I'm doing, and this pulls the curtain right down.
This is a festival of pretending you know what we're doing. Yeah.
All right.
Now, Phil, you had a mention about there's something different about our show that you want to let our audience know.
So, everyone out there, you know that we are constantly working here at Song Talk Radio HQ, trying to find the best way to deliver the song talking to you. And so we're always looking at news and looking at our stats, and we came up with a bit of a realization that a large percentage of the listeners only listen to our 1-hour shows for about 40 minutes. Which is kind of a shame because I think the last 20 minutes are actually pretty cool.
That's when we really start getting it together.
That's true. I mean, we're really smart then. I mean, you wouldn't know it from the first 40 minutes, but after that, boy, you've just
pure brilliance.
And of course, if you've if you listen to the whole 1 hour, you're guaranteed to be a star. But so what we figured out is we're going to try something different here, and so for the next little while, we're going to try doing 30-minute shows. So maybe they might appear once or twice a week in your podcast feed. We're not quite sure how we're going to do that, but I think we're just going to start going for a half-hour show because hopefully you'll pay attention.
Because size matters.
Does this mean that I'm your first guest to be on 2 shows in a row?
Exactly.
Right.
Wow. Right. I like this.
You're the guinea pig, so hopefully
so use short words.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time.
But if you have any thoughts on this, about whether you like the new format or you hate the new format, just let us know in the comments in the YouTube video, or send us an email, feedback at songtalk.ca, and let us know your thoughts.
Even
that
if you're
would be
indifferent,
great.
we'd like to know.
Yeah.
Exactly. But now we have our first guest on our shortened show, Jesse Perron. And so, Jesse, we're listening to your songs, and, well, they're fantastic. They sound good production-wise, but they're also really good and emotional, and have wonderful details. How did you get into songwriting? How did you, did you start with this kind of songwriting, or have you gone through different genres? How did it all come about?
Yeah, I've always found myself comfortable in the folk area, lyric-based or lyric-focused songs. But it was really a natural progression. I spent all of my childhood playing music in different forms, and then when I got into my early 20s, there wasn't really some light bulb or anything. I just thought, hey, why don't I try and put a couple chords together and a couple words together and see what happens. And I really liked it. And I've been doing it ever since, to sometimes better, sometimes worse.
When you were playing cover songs for all those years, was it mostly in the folk area, or did it spread, rock and roll and blues and stuff like that as well? Or
yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of different things. I played in jazz groups in high school, and but when I had my first rock and roll band, we were doing everything at the time, from like 90s rock to Bob Marley to Tom Petty, but it was to like blues and R&B, but it was always like guitar, bass, and drums driven rock focused music. But all the while, on my own, I was listening to, at that time, my heroes were Dylan, Neil Young, Cat Stevens, Paul Simon, those types. And when I was learning to play songs, I was 14, 15, and a lot of my parents were shocked that I was coming down and playing Bob Dylan tunes. And they're like, how do you even know who this guy is? But that's what I liked at the time.
I always thought that a great way of actually learning songwriting is actually to play other people's songs.
100%.
Yeah, and some people really sort of poo-poo the idea of playing cover songs. In fact, at one time, I know in Toronto, they really didn't want you to play any kind of cover songs. And so, all my friends were all kind of art snobs. So we actually sort of said, oh, we don't play any covers. That was the big thing, no covers. But you learn a lot from playing other people's covers, especially trying to replicate what they do on the record, because you learn all those little things that they do in production. It's such a great learning tool.
Oh, absolutely. I often use a terrible joke in my residency in Waterloo at my songwriter thing that I do, that I learn how to play songs I love so I can steal their ideas.
yeah, exactly. And I suppose there's a difference between using someone else's song as a learning tool as opposed to, doing a cover song as part of your performance gig. Like, do you do that, Jesse? Do you play covers during your sets, or do you more use it as a learning tool?
I do, but not heavily. Generally, I'll play, like on my last album that came out in 2019, I did a cover of Paul Simon's "You Can Call Me Al," and it's a completely different arrangement. I took a happy song and made it sad, which is kind of what I do.
Nice.
But, so if I'm doing a cover, it'll either be in my own way, or it won't be true to the original, because it's a cover. It should be something different.
Yeah, I agree.
You would mention your residency. What is that?
Well, before COVID, I had a weekly songwriter showcase on Thursdays at a really small, cool little venue called Lana's Lounge in Waterloo. Hole in the wall, probably not too well known outside of Waterloo, but really cool scene happening there. And every week I have a different songwriter guest, and I host and I play some songs. They play some songs. We talk about the songs, and we jam a few songs together. So
nice.
That sounds great. And speaking of COVID, it provided you with a bit of musical inspiration.
Yeah.
Did it, or was that the inspiration, or how did?
Certainly did. I was actually, I cut short a trip to Nashville the Friday that Trudeau made his first announcement. I had some shows down there and some writing, some rights booked, and my wife and I were together, and we came back early and started our 14-day quarantine. And then a week into it, I was feeling lonely, isolated. I'm really close to my folks, and without getting too much into it, my dad's recovering from cancer right now, and at the time he was going into surgery, and I couldn't even see him, right? So it kept me up that night, and the song just kind of came. You guys know as songwriters that some come real easy and some take years, and this one just was like in a couple hours, and I knew right away that I wanted to figure out how to record it and get it out there as quick.
Was that one of those situations where you're like, you wake up in the middle of the night and you think of something, and then you have to get up out of bed in order to jot it down or record something on your phone, or just to capture it? Because if you wait until morning, you're going to forget it. Was that one of those things?
Oh yeah, I mean the title came to me that afternoon, Learning to Live Apart, and I was like, we're all just trying to figure this stuff out, and then you're falling asleep and you can't sleep, your thoughts are running wild, and at that point the only thing to do is get up and get the thoughts out on paper. So I just went downstairs and started writing.
We'd like to hear it. Would you like to play it live for us?
I'd love to. Great. I just happen to have my guitar with me, so that's what are the chances? I was listening to your great show about 3-chord songs, and I don't know if this qualifies, but there's only 3 chords, so
there you go.
Do they change order? Is that why you're not sure if it qualifies?
They do change order.
I see.
See if you can catch it. Living in isolation, everyone's got a quiet desperation in their eyes. Anytime you want, we can hang out on the net, but I'm starting to forget the smell of your hair. When it's all said and done, we will fill up the holes in our hearts. Until then, we're learning to live apart. Learning to live apart. Oh. A young man sits quietly, his father's in surgery, get rid of the cancer in his bones. Calls his mother on the phone to feel a little less alone. They haven't seen each other in a month. When it's all said and done, we will fill up the holes in our hearts. But until then, we're learning to live apart. We're learning to live apart. No. Woman up in Calgary, she's got a son who works in Tennessee. He couldn't catch a flight home in time. When it's all said and done, we will fill up echoes in our hearts. Until then, we're learning to live apart. We're learning to live apart. Oh. There you have it.
What a brilliant song.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
One of the things I like about it is that it is emotional without being sentimental, which is not an easy trick.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
How so, Michael? Can you be specific on that? Like, what do you mean by emotional but not sentimental?
I find that it triggers emotions because it's lyrically well put together, so you can imagine the situation of the characters that he talks about, but there's no lines in there that are written to evoke an emotion. They're not going for sentiment. It's like, in a movie, you watch a scene, and if it's well acted and well written, you get moved by it, as opposed to something happens and then there's stirring music to tell you how to feel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing pointing to tell you how to feel here, but there's a lot of well-observed moments that make you feel.
Yeah.
Which I think is what makes it good.
That's a good point. I never thought of that, but I did write it, or I tried to write it without being specific or what's the opposite of timeless? I would never claim myself to be timeless, but I didn't want it to be a one situation song. I wanted it to be able to live longer than this pandemic that we're in.
It's also interesting because it is it's in the present tense. The whole song is talking about stuff that happens in the present tense. Whereas a lot of songs, we'll talk about things that happened yesterday, or, we'll talk about things that happened before, but everything here is in the present tense. Which I think is what Michael is talking a bit about, because I think when people look back nostalgically, or with their heart broken, that kind of gives you a different kind of sense about something that's happening right now, and not in fact that it's happening right now in the situation, but the actual tense in the song. Anytime you want to catch me, we can hang out on the net. A young man sits quietly. A woman up in Calgary. It's like all in the present tense. It's not like, remember back when you were in Calgary, or back when I used to, that type of thing.
I that probably just comes from, it was so present at the time when I was writing it that there was nothing in the past, at the time. So,
interestingly, it isn't actually literally meaning what you've written. It doesn't have to be about COVID or what we're going through right now. Each of the verses can be applied to the situation pre and post as well, which I think will help with that timelessness.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see. We'll talk about.
But it's interesting what we bring to it, because you read it, like you hear it and you read the lyrics and you go, oh, it's about this. But I would imagine that if you hear it without the context of the pandemic, it'll still be an affecting song. It just, I think it'll still work without that. And some of the other COVID songs or songs about our situation are very much about the situation. And, once this has passed or become something else, they're going to date in a way that I don't think this will.
That was my focus.
I think what's really great about it in that sense is that if you look at all the lyrics and you think it's about COVID, then everything in there points to COVID. However, but you've got enough variety in there about just hanging out on the net, the father in surgery, which you alluded to before you even talked about the songs, so we know where that came from, the mother on the phone, the person who's living in another city. So there's enough kind of emotional points that anybody listening to the song, either before or well after COVID, without thinking about COVID, could probably still access and feel something through that, because you're right, you weren't specific about a pandemic or anything like that. It's just about being distanced and being alone. Like the flip side to that is you could have very well included a bridge in this song where you spell it out plainly and talk about the pandemic, and I don't think that probably would have
learning to live 6 feet apart.
Yeah, the 6 feet apart thing.
On a side note about bridges in general, I don't pressure myself in my songwriting to write bridges. Some of my favorite songs don't have bridges. Shelter from the Storm by Bob Dylan, for instance, comes to mind. Like, there's no bridge there. So if I feel like a bridge is needed, absolutely, I'll put in the time and try and do it, but not necessarily.
I mean, in a song like this, it's literally a series of vignettes with a central hook chorus. So it's not screaming that it needs a bridge. Certainly not.
It has some really nice songwriting details, which I quite liked. Have perfect rhymes all the way through, except for the last verse. Isolation, desperation, net, forget, quietly, surgery, phone, alone, and then Calgary and Tennessee, which is sort of like a partial rhyme.
Yeah,
which is kind of fun. But it was really great.
I mean, to me that rhymes. There's ease in there.
That counts.
Softer rhyme.
There was the pause on the third line of the first verse. It was so sweet the way it kind of really sets up the verse. It's a wonderful little hook, and putting little pauses into something and making use of the space in your lyrics is it's something that doesn't get used enough, and I think it's such an effective technique. I love that you have the hook on the second line of the chorus, which is we will fill up the holes in our heart. There's a wonderful little kind of twist there on that line, which is just hooky as hell. And then, of course, ideally, you've got this amazing, great hook on learning to live again, or learning to live apart. That's the hook, and that's the title of the song, which is just, classic songwriting, but a wonderful hook there, I thought.
Yeah, and really the gap that you're talking about, Phil, like until then, ... we're learning to live apart.
Yeah.
Like you put that gap there, and that really puts the listener's focus on we're learning to live apart, which helps in its hookiness. Like, it's hooky on its own, but imagine if those two parts of the line were connected together melodically, it may not stand out as such a cool hook.
And there's no doubt what the title of the song is because of that too.
Yes.
So when did you release this, and what's the response been?
The first, to answer your first question, April 14th was the release date, and I remember that well because we had to wait that long because of the streaming services like Spotify and Apple. In order to line everything up to be released on the same day, you have to give them 2 weeks notice, which was killing me because I was like, 2 weeks? This could be over in 2 weeks.
Oh, how naive we were.
Right? And so April 14th was the date it came out, and I hate admitting that it's been my most successful song to date. Not in necessarily financial or chart topping, but in connecting with people and bringing me some attention nationwide. And there's a little bit of guilt involved with that because, COVID hasn't been necessarily a terrible situation for me, terrible experience because of it.
Interesting.
But on the positive side, I mean, you created something that's made people feel better in a time when a lot of people are feeling really crappy. So,
well, I hope so.
That should help assuage the guilt.
Yeah.
You've done something. You've taken, lemons and made lemonade, so to speak.
Thank you.
I thought it was really, really nicely recorded. Could you talk about how you recorded the song?
I'd really rather not, because I was figuring out how to record at the time, and I think I just caught lightning in a bottle. But
very nice.
I have experience. I shouldn't say that I just started from scratch. I've had the equipment for years, but never really had the bravado to record myself. I've always used engineers to bounce ideas off of and make sure it sounds good. So this time I used one of my band members, Steve Wood, from a distance, I would send him the track and see what he thinks. He's usually the pedal steel guitar player in my band when I put a band together, and so he helped me kind of make sure everything sounded okay. But I recorded it all right here where you see this. Like,
so you just is it like one mic type thing? How was the process? What was the process?
Yeah, I mean, one mic at a time, pretty much. I would do. It was just built in pieces. The guitar first, the vocal, even I'm not a drummer, so I did the snare part on its own and sweat the whole time, and then did the hi-hat on its own, did the shaker on its own, did the bass on its own, and then Steve recorded the keys and the synthy sound that you hear at his place and send them to me, and I mixed it together. What
was the microphone that you used?
The same one I'm using right now. It's Apex 580. I think it's like a beginner microphone. It's nothing special.
That's great.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
it sounds really good.
I thought you'd gotten into a studio somehow.
I'd love to have a Neumann, but I mean, this sounds good to me, and that's all I really care about.
And like you say, like the song is reaching people, and that at its core, that's what really counts, right? Whether it's recorded amazingly or decently or anywhere in between, it's the song that counts, right?
Yeah, it's done its job.
What was the what did you use as what was your DAW?
Oh, I have a MacBook Pro Logic on the MacBook, and I've got the same thing I'm using right here, this little M track. I don't know if that's in focus or not, but
it is.
Yeah, and that's it.
Wow,
really nice. Yeah, it sounds
that's
I do have a pair of Mackie studio speakers as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to say, I think that's about all the time we have. You'll have to come back and do another show with us, Jesse.
You'll just have to.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, if you can free up.
We have an
time.
opening about 3 minutes from now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'm in.
All right. So, but that was great, and it was really wonderful to hear that song and how it came to be.
Thanks.
So that's all the time we have tonight. Thank you very much to our guest, Jesse Perrant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send us your impressions on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Songtalk Radio, or send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes where you can see us in little boxes. And also, please stop by the site at songtalk.ca. Subscribe today to the Songtalk Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher.com, Spotify, or Podcast Addict. And don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter at songtalk.ca. And you can find links to all our products and books and web services we mentioned on Songtalk Radio at our resources page on songtalk.ca. And also, we've got please join us at our next Song Talk meetup on Monday, June 22nd from 7 to 10 p.m. live online. It's free to join at meetup.com and free to attend. So stop by songtalk.ca for the link to the meetup.
That, of course, is 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, because you can access this from anywhere in the world.
That's true.
Right. Via Zoom.
Thank you for mentioning that. Neil, how can we follow you?
You can follow me at neilmodi.com.
And Phil say we wanted even more Phil. How would we get our Phil?
You can get more of me at the Phil Emery on Twitter.
Excellent. And Jesse, how would people reach you? Where's the best way?
Best way is jesseperrantmusic.com, and Perrant is spelled like parent, like mom and dad.
Okay, wonderful. And please talk. Oh, and me, you can reach, let me see, Instagram, Proudfoot420. That's it. Okay, please, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much. Stop by the website at songtalk.ca and you can browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Keep on writing, get better, use these tips. We'd love to hear from you. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
See ya. Thank you, Jesse.